being recorded. We will be posting this for stakeholders, maybe some of your friends that weren't able to join. So this webinar will also be recorded and posted very quickly, as well as the link to today's session. So here's our agenda for today. Again, we're going to be taking a look at just an accountability overview and where PEIMS fits into that. We'll be digging into what data is collected as it relates to accountability during the fall snapshot, some best practices for reviewing reports. We'll then do kind of a double click into CCMR and grad rate data before we transition to some of the shifts that are coming to PEIMS submission timelines, as well as some shifts as a result of House Bill 8. Many of you are probably very familiar with this graphic or a similar one. So the accountability system within Texas, the A through F system, consists of three domains. So domain 1 is our student achievement domain, where we really measure to what extent students are both mastering grade level material and are prepared for college, career, military, and post-secondary success, as well as our students graduating. Domain 2 is our school progress domain, where we look at both individual student growth as well as relative performance. And then domain 3, of course, is our closing the gaps domain. When it comes to final ratings, your campus will receive ratings in domains 1, domain 2A, 2B, and domain 3. And then the best of domain 1 or 2 accounts for 70% of your overall rating. And then domain 3, of course, accounts for 30% of your overall rating. Here's a little bit of a double click into some of the components that are underneath each of these domains. So in domain 1, we're looking at STAR achievement data, CCMR or college, career, military readiness, and then the grad rate. And in domain 1, we're looking at the best of your 4, 5, or 6-year grad rate. In domain 2, in domain 2A, we're looking at STAR growth, so how much individual students have grown from end of year assessment to end of year assessment. And then in domain 2B, we're looking at the relative performance, so how your achievement compares to other campuses with a similar economically disadvantaged profile. And then in domain 3, we have a whole host of things that we're looking at: STAR achievement, STAR growth, the grad rate, student success, school quality, and then, of course, progress in English language proficiency, which is measured through the TELPAS. And then we also just want to name that within domains 1 and 2, we are looking at all students. So we'll talk more about this, but all students that were enrolled in your school as of the fall snapshot date. And then in domain 3, we're really looking at more individualized groups of students. So of course, the all student group is still reflected in your domain 3 results, but we are also looking at the 2 lowest performing racial or ethnic groups from the previous year, as well as your high focus group, which includes students who are economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, your English language learners, as well as your students who are highly mobile, which includes homeless, foster, and migrant students. So that is accountability in about 25 seconds. But our focus for today is really the data, and specifically the PEIMS data that feeds into the system in order to produce those results. So we do have a wide range of data sources that are used to calculate the accountability ratings. And so on the bottom of the screen, you can see that there are a number of data sources not related to PEIMS. Including we get data from the College Board, we get data from THECB, we get data from the Department of Defense. And so all of those are reflected in your accountability ratings. We also, or the 2 big ones that most of the data is coming from are the Test Information Distribution Engine, or TIDE, and then of course TSDS PEIMS. So our focus for today, again, is really digging into this PEIMS data, but we would be remiss not to mention that all of these other data sources also need to be accurate in order for your accountability rating to reflect what you expect it to reflect. We also kind of a double click into Tide because Tide is a major source of data within the accountability system for anything STAR related. So we know if you are in a smaller district or a smaller ISD, that this might be your job too. And then if you're in a little bit of a larger system, this might be managed by your testing coordinator. So again, anything STAR related is coming from Tide. And so we just always want to call out that what's in Tide needs to match what's in PEIMS at the individual student data level to ensure those accountability ratings reflect what you expect them to reflect based on the data that you have collected and what you know about the kids who are in your buildings every day. We also just want to name that if any of the language that we're using today, or if you're like, oh, I need to go back into this and really study it, we do have a number of embedded resources within the accountability system manual to be used at your disposal. So the first we want to call out is Appendix D, which is the accountability glossary. And so if we say something today that doesn't quite make sense, of course, put it in the Q&A. We're happy to answer that live. And we also want to make sure that you have, the ability to go back and reference things as you get ready for the summer submission or the extended year submission. So we do want to name that Appendix D is a great resource. And one thing you can always do is, kind of the Control F. If you're like, where does PEIMS show up? It'll be highlighted. It'll show you exactly where that is, where PEIMS is showing up within accountability systems. And then again, really more clearly defining a lot of the terms that we'll be using today. So here is digging in a little bit to exactly where does the data that you submit in your fall submission, where does that show up in accountability? And so another resource, two additional resources we just wanted to share. So for Appendix H was upgraded for this year's accountability system manual. And so it has a really high level of detail available to you that includes, the elements that you need to be that need to be accurate, the reports that you can run to ensure that those elements are reflected accurately in your submission. And Jamie will be talking a lot about those reports today and how you can use those reports to make any changes that you need to make before that resubmission closes on the 15th. We also, in performance reporting, have put together an additional resource. This is live. It has been live. I think it went up in like late July, early August. But this is the accountability data sources specific towards the PEIMS fall submission. And this is really focused on CCMR. So if all of the other resources don't answer your question, this is kind of a one-stop shop as it relates to CCMR data. And so we just want to make sure that you guys have access to this. I'm hoping we will make sure that these are all dropped to you as well, but want to make sure that you all have access to these as you are preparing for that fall resubmission date that is coming up very quickly. All right, so fall snapshot data and accountability calculations, and we're going to start really big and then zoom in a little bit. So the first thing that needs to be right in terms of your accountability being right is we need to know who is enrolled at your school, and we need to know what grades those students are enrolled in. And this matters for a couple of reasons, three big reasons that I would name. The first is the accountability subset rule. The second is the way that we do district ratings is a proportional weight based on your campus population size. And then the last is your school type. So the accountability subset rule, what this means is that students who were enrolled in your campus as of October 31st are going to be the students who their scores are counted in your accountability rating calculations. And so it needs to be accurate to ensure that, if little Katie enrolled on October 30th, We want to make sure that that is accurately reflected as part of our fall snapshot data. I was there before October 31st, and I need to be accurately counted in your submission to ensure that my star scores are counting when accountability calculations come out. The one caveat to that, of course, is for our high school students who took the EOC in June. Their accountability subset rule would actually be applied as of the October 2024 snapshot because that June is still considered part of the previous school year, even though their results from the June EOC will count towards 2026 accountability. For proportional weighting within district ratings, of course, each school within a district has a weight based on the percent of students within the district population that attend that school. So if there is a school that has 300 students and a school that has 100 students, that school with 300 students is weighted more heavily because they have more students enrolled when those district proportional roll-ups come up. And so you want to make sure that your campus enrollment data is accurate, and so your proportional weight within the district methodology is also correct. The last thing that we want to call out on this slide is ensuring that your grades that students are enrolled in are accurately reflected. And the reason this matters is because we take a look at the grades that you have enrolled to determine which school type you will be, which methodology you will use depending on your school type for your accountability rating. So for example, if you inadvertently, if you're an elementary school leader and you inadvertently coded all of your second graders as 12th graders, we then would go looking for CCMR data because you have 12th graders in your high school. And that probably is not what you would want to happen as an elementary school leader. And so making sure that the kids that were enrolled as of October 31st is correct, the number of students that are enrolled is correct, and then which grades they're enrolled in is also correct. All three of these things are really important to ensure that kind of the baseline systems that contribute to your accountability calculations are correct. We also just want to name that within TIDE, again, we're really pulling that student level data as it relates to STAR results from TIDE. And so it's critical that once that window opens up, that the first name, the last name, and the PEIMS ID between the PEIMS submission and TIDE are exactly the same so that we know who that student is. We know that that student was enrolled with you as of October 31st, 2025, and we know what that student's final results were on their STAR assessment. We also, in this fall submission, want to ensure that the economically disadvantaged status for each student is accurate. And within accountability calculations, we pull that from the fall snapshot for the purposes of domain 2B, or the relative performance. And so within relative performance, we take a look at the achievement of your campus, and then that is compared relatively to other campuses with a similar economically disadvantaged profile. And so we do want to make sure that this is accurate in order to make sure that when your 2B rating is calculated, that we have an accurate economically disadvantaged rate for your campus. Of course, because that STAR-related student level data is pulled from TIDE, again, we want to make sure that those systems are exactly matched, because if we, to determine whether or not a student is part of the high focus group within domain 3, we're actually pulling that data from TIDE. So again, today is really focused on PEIMS, but we do want to name that, of course, these data systems need to match in order to make sure that your accountability rating is accurate and really reflects what you expect it to reflect. There is just a note there as well. We know sometimes gathering the documentation that you need from parents or from guardians can be a longer process. And so just want to name for those students that were enrolled as of October 31st, you do have until January 15th in order to update an individual student's economically disadvantaged status once you kind of get the proper documentation that you need. And one thing we just want to name is that we cannot see what is in your student information system. So it doesn't matter which SIS you are using, we cannot see what's in there. And so it's really critical. And Jamie's about to jump into, how you do this. But our first kind of segment is thinking about who is enrolled, what grades are they enrolled, what is their economically disadvantaged status. We can't see what is in your SIS. And so it's really important that you ensure and run these reports to make sure that what's in your SIS and your data systems at the local level are matching what we are seeing in PEIMS. And that's ultimately your responsibility. But we're really excited to be here alongside you today to ensure that we are supporting you and making sure that like what you have and what we have are an exact match. And so the reports that we're about to jump into that Jamie's going to walk through, we do encourage you between now and January 15th to schedule a time, get everybody at the table with your PEIMS leaders, your CCMR leads, your accountability leads, and any district leaders. And we know in a very small district, that might be one person, that might be two people, but whoever is at the table, we encourage everybody to get together and ensure that every report is run to ensure that the records you have in your SIS are an exact match to what is in your PEIM submission. So you are getting the credit and getting an accurate rating based on your accurate data submission. So only you can prevent inaccurate data submissions, but you do not have to do it alone. So we are here to support you at the end of our time together today. We're also going to be sharing others at your ESCs who can support as well. And then Jamie is a tremendous resource and is going to jump in today about how can you run this report, what reports do you need to run to ensure that that submission is correct. And again, first off, we're focused on who is enrolled, what grades are they enrolled in, and what is their economically disadvantaged status. So Jamie, I will pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes. So I've always considered that PEIMS is a group effort. And so what we want to do through these next few slides is really encourage those of you that might not be on the PEIMS side, and those of you that are on the PEIMS side, encourage you to run these reports for your accountability folks. We have been trying very hard to kind of get everybody on the same team so that we can make sure that the data is looked at by more eyes. Obviously, the PEIMS people are amazing, and they are going to be the first line of defense. However, they're not the owners of the data. They are the runners of the data, and they are the ones that are ensuring what goes from your SIS gets into your gets into TSDS. And so the first report that I love to talk about is actually my favorite report that's ever been in existence. And it's the TSDS PEIMS disaggregation report. So this almost gives you a snapshot of what your district looked like on the PEIMS snapshot date. This can be run by campus. It can be run for the entire LEA. This gives you your enrollment, gives you important program information. Down in the first page on the bottom left-hand side, it talks about your economic disadvantage. This is a great report to run and look at and just ensure that if you expected to have students in 12th grade, that you have students enrolled and listed in 12th grade. Things can happen as your data flows from your SIS into TSDS. This is the second year that the data is coming in through API. And while you would assume that the data comes right over, gets into TSDS, and would look exactly the same, there are certain things that can happen as that data is flowing over. And the next slide is just the second page of this report. And it gives you a few more of that program level information for that disaggregation report. So if you have never seen this report before, I highly encourage you go ask someone to run it for you so you can take a look at it and kind of get to know what your district looks like. It's just a great a snapshot into what you guys look like as of the PEIMS fall submission. So on the next slide is going to be our new report that was developed and came into life last year. This shows a percent of change from the prior year for certain demographics. What is important about these demographics, characteristics, and programs is these are all things that are used by accountability. So it's really important to take a look at these and make sure that you reported all of your kids. We've been going through the quality assurance from the PEIMS submission one data, getting ready for resubmission. And I've seen a few districts that maybe last year reported 1,000 kids in a certain program, and this year have one kid. And so this report's really going to bring that to life and show you that information. I do want to take a moment and just let you know that this report is not located with the standard reports. Gotten a lot of emails saying, I don't have access to this report. You probably do. You just need to go down a little bit further under the special reports and then district level QA. That's where it's going to be, and you're going to be able to find that report. And I believe on the next slide that I'm going to pass it back over to Katie, and you're going to take us through a couple, and then I will be back in to review some other reports.
Yep. No, excuse me. Yes, absolutely. And I love that the PEIMS are the runners of the data. And again, just really emphasizing all of us need to have insight into accountability and into PEIMS. I will never be an expert at running PEIMS reports, but I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful to my teammates here okay, like help me really orient myself in order to understand what's changing, what's the same, and really make sure that everything is accurate. So we are going to dive in to CCMR, or college, career, and military readiness, as well as graduation rates, because we know that the complexity of these data submissions can get really sticky, and wanted to really call these out to ensure that you are really clear of, when I get a PEIMS report, what am I looking at? Or if I'm running the PEIMS report, what are other people looking for, and how can we really get on the same page? So let's spend some time here. So we are going to jump back into this very, very high level overview of the accountability framework. So domain one, again, is student achievement. And within domain one, CCMR accounts for 40% of the domain one ratings. So it is a big chunk of your domain one rating. If you are a high school or a K-12 that had a graduating class in the previous year. Within domain two, CCMR also shows up. So the scaled scores for STAR performance and CCMR are averaged. And then again, put into a relative framework based on economically disadvantaged status. So all of these data pieces, again, are working together. And then within domain three, 30% of domain three is coming from CCMR, again, for your all students group, your two lowest performing race and ethnicity groups from last year, and then the high focus group as well. So for the fall submission, there are 4 specific indicators that tie directly into CCMR and ultimately will impact your CCMR rating. So those 4 that are collected during the fall submission are the industry certification, associate degrees, the IEP workforce and readiness graduates, and then the special education graduates with advanced diploma plans. And so those are the 4 we're really going to be digging into today. Again, many CCMR indicators are not collected through PEIMS. So an example of that would be SAT, ACT, or TSIA scores. And so while those cannot be verified using a PEIMS report, those can be checked during the CCMR verifier, and then you're able to submit documentation to correct any inaccuracies or things that look off. And that's anticipated in mid-May. So more coming on CCMR verifier window much later in the spring, but did want to name that these 4 that are on the top are really focused, are really the focus of the PEIMS fall submission, but that CCMR has many indicators, the data come from many sources, and want to make sure that you've got the systems in place at your campus and district levels to ensure that all of those are accurate. And then, of course, we know that there are many ties between CCMR and grad rate, but that grad rate also stands alone. So within Domain 1, the graduation rate accounts for 20% of your Domain 1 calculations. If you're a high school or a K-12 that had a graduating class last year. And in Domain 1, we are looking at the best of your 4, 5, or 6-year graduation rates. Domain 2 does not reflect the graduation rate, but Domain 3 does. Again, it's for those four groups, the all students group, the two lowest performing race and ethnicity groups from last year, and the high focus group. And there, the graduation rate accounts for 10% of your Domain 3 score. And within Domain 3, we are just looking at the 4-year graduation rate. And then we just really wanted to illustrate the very clear relationship between, accuracy. So grad rate stands alone, and grad rate is also critical to ensure it's accurate when we are looking at CCMR calculations. So in both domains 1 and 3, an inaccurate graduation rate submission will yield an inaccurate CCMR rate. So in domain 1, we take the number of graduates who achieved at least one CCMR indicator, and then we divide that by the number of annual graduates. So that graduation rate needs to be correct. And then in domain 3, we take a look at the number of annual graduates over the number of students in the class, which includes graduates, continuers, dropouts. So a wider group of students. But again, those graduates are counted in the denominator of the CCMR calculations within domain 3. So lots of those four big indicators. We know many students are achieving CCMR through one of those indicators, if not a couple of them. And so I'm going to pass it back over to Jamie to take a look at how do we double check, triple check, quadruple check that those things are correct. So if you are at a high school, that your CCMR calculations are also accurate.
Awesome. So I'm just going to go through four reports that I would personally use in the PEIMS fall submission to make sure that the data that we are reporting for accountability is reported for one, and then reported accurately. There's been a lot of questions in the chat as we've been going through about how do I run these reports? How do I find these reports? And if you are an LEA and you've not run these reports before, please get in touch with your ESC. I know they can help you get access to the reports if you're meant to have access, or direct you to who in your LEA can get you those reports. If you are an ESC, please work with the ESC PEIMS department if you're with accountability, and they can help you get you set up. So it's really important that we kind of all work together, because these are out in TSDS PEIMS and are pretty easy to run once somebody shows you where to go for them. So this first report right here is going to provide the graduates by their graduation type. You would never imagine how many districts have reached out and found that they reported no graduates. It can happen. And so this is a really important report to look at and check and make sure, one, that you have graduates reported, and two, that they have the appropriate graduation or diploma type with that. So you're going to be looking for those pieces within this report. But first and foremost, you need to have some names on this report before you can even get going with it. So as we shift into the next slide, we're getting to a little more detailed information about the graduate. So this report right here is going to give us the Foundation High School Program graduate information. The first thing that I always looked at is to check and make sure the students that I expected to have completed an endorsement are reported with their endorsement here. So there's going to be those columns. You want to make sure that if I expected Johnny to have a arts and humanities endorsement, that it is listed. You will see some columns for post-secondary certification on there. But honestly, I kind of ignore those, because in a couple slides, I'm going to show you a report that's all about those post-secondary certifications. It's important to look at it, see that you have these things listed, but I like to get into the actual report that's providing me that information. And so this one right here, I'm using it, I'm looking at it, I'm making sure all the appropriate endorsements are reported, and then making fixes. We still have time to get things fixed. It is not final. And so I highly encourage take a look at it and see what can still be fixed. On the next slide goes into my third report that I like to look at. And this one here, I'm focused on the column about the earned and associate degree. So, but I want to caution you all, these are going to be earned associate degree from June 1st through August 31st. It's not going to be all of your students that earned an associate degree throughout the entire past school year. So this is going to be our summer months. So what I want to encourage you all and what I have put on this slide is that there is a summer report. It's the PDM 3-120-010. It's listed here on the slide, which is going to show us those students who earned an associate degree during the 24-25 school year. Combine these two reports together, and you should see who all has earned an associate degree. And I know the next thing that's coming into your head is, what if I run that summer and I've noticed that I'm missing some kids? And in a few slides, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I want to get everyone in the habit of knowing that I need to look at these reports. And it's really important that I am comparing and making sure that all of my kids are going to be listed. On the last slide is that IBC report that is really important to run. And the most important piece on this is going to be that column that says post sec cert lice result. What that is doing is that is giving us the result of that IBC. I have seen more data corrections than I care to admit for LEAs that have reported all students with the O2 in that column. The O2 is telling TEA, hey, this student passed the IBC exam, but this IBC has other conditions like a background check, fingerprinting before they can actually earn that IBC. So we have some IBCs that it's a test only. Great. You're going to do an O1 IBC earned. And you have some that require a test and then fingerprinting. And so if they haven't gotten that fingerprinting, you could initially report that student with the O2, saying we passed the test, but we've got some other stuff we've got to deal with. The key is when they earn it, when they do that second step, that you need to make sure that it is reported again with that IBC earned. IBC earned is what is used in accountability. And so it's really important. We've gotten so many where they put that O2 for everybody, and they have to go in and make that data correction to switch it to the O1 so that they can actually get that CCMR. And so as we've kind of talked a little bit about this, I'm going to pass it back over to Katie, I believe, to do some slides, and then I'll be back to talk a little bit more with you guys.
Perfect. And I meant to, I was it just popped into the Q&A while Jamie was chatting, and I meant to name this. We're going to share this deck at the conclusion of our time together today, so you'll leave with it. We'll also post it today on performance reporting resources, and then it'll be in our bulletin as well. So you will not leave today without it, but we also know sometimes the deck that you get in a Zoom chat goes missing, and so we'll make sure that it is shared in other ways as well. So Jamie just talked about the importance of IBC earned, and we get a lot of questions about how IBCs work in CCMR, and so wanted to just take a moment and then also make sure that you all were aware of a fairly new resource we're really excited about that came directly from stakeholder feedback related to just the complexity and all of the pieces that need to be right in order to for a student to earn CCMR through an an IBC or an industry-based certification. So again, in the fall submission, we're looking at that actual industry certification submission. But what the data file that we look at for accountability rating is actually looking at four different things. So first, the student needs to be a graduate, so that graduation status needs to be correct. Their CTE status also needs to be correct. And so that's coming from all of the courses that that student has taken through their high school journey, or potentially even earlier, depending on the program of study. We also need to ensure that they earned an IBC and that the IBC they earned is through a program of study that is aligned to their CTE status. And so there's a lot of different pieces, some of which are in the fall submission, some of which that aren't, that all come together in order to determine whether or not that student is earning college, career, and military readiness credit. And so this is an example of how you can think through it, how we encourage you to think through it as you start to gear up for, we know many LEAs are making CCMR predictions based on the class of 2025. And so again, while only that certification is submitted in the fall, the CTE status must be correct and aligned within the program of study for CCMR to be earned. So the first question to ask yourself, which you can do with a fall submission, is did this student earn an IBC? And we want to make sure that it's not passed, but they earned that IBC with that report that Jamie just showed us. The next thing we wanted to take a look at is, did the student earn a CTE status of completer or concentrator, depending on which class you're talking about. But for future forward accountability, did they earn a completer status within any program of study? And then lastly, do any of the IBC's aligned program of study match the program of study with a CTE status of completer? And the answer to all three of those need to be yes in order for a student to earn CCMR for an industry-based certification. So again, we'll make sure you have access. This is just one example. There's a large range of IBCs that students can earn, and we know many of you are really excited about the offerings and programs of study that you have for your students. But again, the student needs to earn an IBC. They need to be a concentrator or a completer, depending on which class of students you're talking about or which year of annual graduates. And then the program of study for the IBC and the program of study for that CTE status must match in order for the IBC to be earned for CCMR credit. So let's say you are running all of these reports. You've got your accountability team together. You've got your high school leaders together. You've got your test coordinator, just for good measure. You've got 10 people sitting at the table. You're running all these reports, and then we find an error. That's okay. The fall submission, resubmission window is not closed yet. So Jamie, I'm going to pass it back over to you to talk about if you do find an error while you're running these reports, what do you do next?
Awesome. Ah, sorry, my everything's kind of flipping a little bit here over here. So first off, it is not too late to make corrections for your PEIMS fall resubmission. So resubmission due date is January 15th. Please go in and get these reports today. If you are struggling finding the report or getting the report run, talk to some people at your ESC or your LEA to see if you can get some help with that. And then also you can submit a TIMS ticket if you are struggling to get a report to run. So if you're not the PEIMS coordinator, or you don't have the ability to run your own reports, find your PEIMS coordinator in your district, bring them a piece of chocolate and a list of some reports and tell them, hey, I want to join forces with you and look at the data with you, because I really feel like the more people, the more eyes on it, the more that you can find mistakes and make corrections. The key right there is going to be the chocolate piece of it, because most of your PEIMS coordinators right now are running on chocolate and caffeine. But you don't just want to look at the PEIMS fall submission reports. Like I mentioned, the associate degree, and I failed to mention it for the IBC report that is run in the fall, is only going to be for a subset of data. It's going to be your June 1 to August 31st associate degrees earned and IBCs. There is a matching report in PEIMS summer submission that you will want to have run so you can check for those other kids. It's really important that you are pulling both of those pieces together. If you find errors in the summer submission, because you're going to be looking at those reports, I believe this is the perfect segue into Katie starting to talk about our House Bill 8 updates.
Yep, absolutely. Coming out of House Bill 8, and so if you find an error and it's from your fall submission, correct it before the resubmission. That's great. And then at times you may find an error that goes back a little bit further. And as many as you know, there in the past, if there was an error related to CCMR and it came through the CCMR verifier and was a non-PEIMS related error, that could be corrected. So, for example, there was not a record of a student's SAT score. You could resubmit that SAT score. It would be reflected in your final CCMR accountability calculations. But up until now, PEIMS data from prior year that impacted CCMR could not be corrected. We do want to name that beginning with 2026 accountability, House Bill 8, which was signed back in September, has shifted that. And so now LEAs are able to correct prior year PEIMS errors through a working submission. And this is really specific to prior year PEIMS errors related to CCMR accountability indicators. So there are many, many more details forthcoming in the coming months. So we do want to assure you more details will be coming. However, if we had an error with our associate's degrees that were, reported in the extended year. If there's, we had an error with our CTE status, we do encourage you that if you are already aware of errors from PEIMS submissions in the 2024-2025 submissions during that school year, that you can actually now begin the process of a working submission. And so, Jamie, I'm going to pass it back over to you to talk a little bit more about the specifics of how to do that working submission. That if you already know there's an error, you can go ahead and get started on now for 2024-2025 PEIMS submission errors specific to CCMR that impact your 2026 accountability.
Awesome. Yes. So on the next slide, we have provided you guys the instructions to submit a working collection. We highly encourage that you are reporting accurate information, but we understand that there are going to be a few small times when the submission window has closed and you find that there is a big mistake that is going to impact your accountability. And so there are directions listed on this screen, but I don't want you to print these out, laminate them, and believe that these are true and final, because we are working on potentially making changes to this based on House Bill 8. But right now, if you do see that you have a mistake, these are the steps that you are going to follow. And so I highly encourage, if you are an LEA, that before you start these steps, talk with your ESC PEIMS people. Make sure that this is something that you want to go down the path of, and then really look at the reports that you are providing to us. So all of this comes to my team, and we get a lot of reports that might not necessarily in working collection show us the change that you were looking for. So really spend some time and make sure that you are getting those reports and that working collection accurately updated. And so again, it is subject to change. And we will provide additional information. I'm sure Katie and I can come back in front of you guys once we know what it's going to look like and provide that to you. But I want to spend the next few minutes going through some upcoming changes that are happening to PEIMS. And I love that I already had somebody ask a question about it in the chat. So many of you may have heard rumors that there will be a new PEIMS submission in the 26-27 school year. And I wish I could stand here and tell you that those rumors are false, but they are true. However, one of the things that I've been hearing is that a lot of people have been saying, oh, this new submission is for accountability. And that is false. This new submission is not for accountability. The big change for some of the accountability pieces are coming this summer and extended year. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I just have 6 quick slides to talk about these changes. Many of you have probably heard and seen these first few slides. TEA uses all of your data to complete certain federal reporting requirements. We expect you guys to be on time and accurate in your reporting. The U.S. Department of Education expects us to be on time and accurate with our reports. But we have not been able to meet those federal reporting deadlines for some of those. And based on this, TEA has not been able to come into compliance based on when we're getting some of the information about our graduates, leavers, and dropouts. So this is the second year that TEA was placed on a condition on our Title I and Perkins funds. We do not want to lose those funds. And so we realized that we've got to make a change. We were also excluded initially from the graduation rate reports that were published by the Department of Education. They literally put a little thing there that said Texas did not report it on time. Need to get that fixed. So what did we do? On the next slide, we knew that we had to make these changes. So about 2 years ago, we started discussing this internally. We worked with some of the groups that we typically work with. We worked a lot with our friends on the accountability side. Even though this is not, the new submission is not accountability, this change that we're needing to make that's happening this school year for our leavers and graduates is going to impact accountability. And so we worked a lot to make sure that we could get the information we needed. So what did we do? What is happening? On the next slide, it is just kind of a brief couple bullet points to show you guys our leavers and graduates are this school year being reported kind of a little different each set. Our 24-25 leavers and graduates are being reported right now in our 25-26 PEIMS fall submission. All of those reports we talked about need to be run for this PEIMS fall submission. But this is the last time you're going to have to worry about PEIMS fall when it comes to your leavers and graduates, when it comes to their graduation types and pieces like that. That is now being moved into the 25-26 PEIMS summer and extended year submission. So finally, that you will be reporting all of your kids in the same year they left or graduated. So by the close of this school year, we will close out the year. Your kids will be reported. Everything will be coming in. It's an exciting time to not have to wait almost 6 months to find out who the leavers and graduates are for a district. So that's kind of the high level what is happening. And on the next slide, I want to show you the new PEIMS fall enrollment submission, which goes along with these changes. Again, nothing to do with accountability. We need to know first, all students that are enrolled on the first Friday in October and their special education determination. This is used for some federal reporting. And so we have to have this for all of the kids that are enrolled on that first Friday in October. The second thing we are getting are any students in grades 7 to 12 who were enrolled. So for example, in the 26-27 school year, anytime from the first day of school until the last Friday in September, which is called the school start window. So what we need these kids for is that statewide reconciliation to make sure we know that every student continued into a school or continued into another educational environment. Again, accountability is not going to join forces with us in this PEIMS fall enrollment submission. We are on our own for this. So if you're an accountability person, you can almost take this one out of your head and not have to ever worry about this one. If you are a PEIMS person, you get to join forces with us and work on this. The last couple slides are just giving you guys the timeline. If you are responsible for these different pieces, you will receive additional training about this. We just wanted to give a big high level discussion about it because we keep hearing that this new submission is for accountability purposes. And so that is one rumor that we want to get rid of, that it is not for accountability. So this slide right here is kind of a you are here. You are right here, right before our resubmission is due. And it's a great time to start looking at those reports, running those reports. The last slide is going to show you just that new timeline for the PEIMS fall enrollment submission, just so you can kind of take a look at it in relation to fall. But the PEIMS fall submission will still be your accountability submission. It's just missing that graduate information. You're still going to have your EcoDis. You're still going to have what makes a campus look like a campus. So PEIMS fall submission is still going to be important. It's just going to shift in what we're going to be looking at. I'm going to pass it back over to Katie, who can close us out, and I'll hop back on the Q&A and see if I can answer some more questions.
Okay, perfect. And we did just want to name, we were getting lots of questions, and frankly, we had a lot of questions about these new submission timelines. So this will be updated today. So I just want to name that this will be updated today, and then we will update it periodically as more information becomes available. But in the same way that over the past year or so, we have provided the academic accountability data sources, and this is specific to CCMR. So we shared one earlier today specific to the fall submission. This one is an overview of all of those data sources that account for CCMR. It also has that kind of step-by-step question that I shared earlier related to IBCs. And then what we worked to do was make sure that there was a really clear lineup between what is being collected when for the 25-26 submission windows, and then how does that change for 2026, 2027? So you can see on the screen here, highlighted in orange for industry-based certifications is extended year. That indicates that's a shift from the fall submission in 25-26 to the extended year submission in 2026, 2027. So again, this will be periodically updated today, periodically updated and will be updated today. So if you downloaded this last month or in November when we shared it through the performance reporting bulletin, we do encourage you to periodically check and just make sure you see any updates that are reflected there. And a just tremendous shout out to all of our teammates at ESCs who gave us feedback, who helped really spark the need for this resource, and then gave us feedback to get it as strong as possible. We appreciate you all. So to close us out today, here are some big ideas we really hope that you're leaving with. Only you can prevent inaccurate data submissions, but you do not have to do it alone. And so these PEIMS submissions being accurate are critical for accurate accountability ratings. And then we always just want to stamp, we cannot see what is in your SIS. It's really what is in PEIMS that counts. So please make sure that those are matching up. So in the fall submission, there are multiple data submissions that impact accountability ratings, and you have until now, from now until January 15th to make those corrections. Somebody put in the chat or in the Q&A, and I agree wholeheartedly. We certainly do not recommend until waiting, on schedule a meeting for the 3 p.m. on January 15th. We encourage to get started as soon as possible. If you're not already doing these things, we know many places are. And then our most successful districts are reviewing these reports as a team. And so everybody who has a lens on accountability and PEIMS, which are many, many people across districts, are sitting down together and really taking a look at that. And to Jamie's point, bring chocolate. It always helps move the work along. But together, everyone achieves more, and we really encourage you to work with your across your LEA in order to make sure that your fall PEIMS resubmission is accurate. We are going to share a quick survey before we close out. It is just 3 questions, and we really do appreciate you giving us your feedback. As I named kind of at the jump of our session today, we got feedback pretty consistently from our stakeholders that a structure such as this would be helpful. And so we'd like to know if it actually was helpful and what worked and what didn't, because we have a number of planned sessions coming up, but we don't want to continue on that journey without first getting your feedback on what worked and what didn't work. So please make sure you can scan it on your phone. There's a tiny URL. We really appreciate your feedback. I promise you, I read every single piece of it and work to get better. And as you know, Jamie and I have both named, this is kind of a first for both of us. We imagine we would like to do more of them, but want to make sure that it's really meeting your needs. We also just want to name if you need some additional support, you are struggling to find the report that you need, a myriad of things that you might be need some help with. We just wanted to kind of name if you need additional support. So if you need additional support accessing reports or the TSDS systems or other system-based challenges, the customer support email for TSDS is listed there. And then these are live links once you get the deck. Also, the help desk for PEIMS is listed there as well. If you are having challenges reviewing reports, pinpointing errors, or making any corrections, we do just want to name your ESCs or your education service centers are a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous resource. And if you're not sure who to contact at the ESC, we've got listed the general ESC contact information who will be able to get you in the right place. And then last but certainly not least, if you need additional support understanding the relationship between the PEIMS data and accountability ratings, please email us at performancereporting@tea.texas.gov, and we are more than happy to jump in and support as well. So that concludes our time today. We are right on time. If you have not had a chance to complete your survey, we sincerely appreciate you doing that. And you're welcome to log off at any time, but we do appreciate you completing that survey first. We'll take a moment to make sure that we can close out anything that is in the Q&A before we officially close the webinar. But we just appreciate you so much being here today. Good luck with your fall resubmission. And we know for most of you, it's a first week back with kiddos. So good luck with like restarting systems in January. We appreciate you and we hope to see you soon. All right. I see Jamie furiously typing answers to the chat. Thank you, Jamie.
Yep. If we can grab the rest of the questions, we can answer some of them. I think we need to think a little more about.
Okay. Okay.